All right, let's dig in. Today we're talking about cropping systems. Now we spend a lot of time thinking about what we grow, corn, wheat, soybeans, but it turns out that how we grow it, the system itself, is just as critical for the long-term health of our farms and really our planet.
So let's just start with the big question that gets right to the heart of modern agriculture. A huge number of farms today grow one single crop on the exact same piece of land year in and year out. I mean, on the surface, it seems super efficient, but is it really the smartest way to do things in the long run? That's the core puzzle we're going to unpack today.
So, to understand why so many farms look the way they do now, we actually have to take a step back in time. This whole move towards single-crop farming, what we call monoculture, is actually a pretty recent thing in the grand scheme of agriculture. Believe it or not, it wasn't always like this.
Just look at this slide. It paints such a different picture, doesn't it? A little over 100 years ago, your typical farm was this incredibly diverse ecosystem. You had crops being rotated to keep the soil fertile and pests in check, and you had livestock completely integrated into the system. It was this amazing closed loop where the animals gave you manure for fertilizer and even the muscle to plow the fields.
So what happened? Well, three massive technological shifts basically changed everything. First, mechanization. Tractors replaced horses, and suddenly one farmer could handle way more land. Then, plant breeders got really good at creating these new high-yield varieties that did best in very specific, uniform conditions. And finally, the chemical boom gave us powerful fertilizers and pesticides that kind of took over the jobs that crop diversity used to do. Specialization suddenly seemed like the only way forward.
So, the result of all this new tech was a complete rewrite of the economic rules of farming. It just didn't make sense anymore to be a jack of all trades. Instead, the push was towards specializing. If you focused on just one crop, you could get the most out of your expensive new machinery and become a real expert in that one market.
And that brings us right to the central dilemma of monoculture. It has some very real, very powerful upsides. But, and this is a big but, those advantages come with some pretty significant costs, often hidden, that can really add up over time.
So let's just make sure we're all on the same page. Monoculture is simply the practice of growing one single crop on the same land year after year. It's the system that gives us those huge uniform fields of corn or wheat that seem to stretch on forever. It's really the landscape of agricultural specialization. And this slide lays out the trade-off perfectly. On one hand, the appeal is so obvious, right? It's incredibly efficient. You only need one set of equipment, you become an expert in that one crop, and you only have one market to worry about. But then, you look at the other side of the coin, the risks are huge. The soil gets tired and can wash away, pests and diseases that love your crop have a field day, and your entire livelihood is tied to the price of that one single commodity.
Okay, so facing all these challenges, a lot of people are looking to a different way of doing things. It's a model that tries to work with nature's processes instead of fighting against them. We often call this philosophy conservation agriculture, and it's all about bringing diversity and resilience back to the farm. Think of conservation agriculture like a three-legged stool. It's built on these three principles that all have to work together. First, you bother the soil as little as possible. Second, you keep the soil covered all the time, either with leftover bits from the last crop or with a living plant. And third, you grow a bunch of different things. The real magic is you can't really do one without the others. They all support each other to build a healthier farm.
Now, to get that first pillar, we've got to talk about tillage. For centuries, literally centuries, turning over the soil with a plow was just what you did. The idea was to create a nice, clean slate for your seeds, kill weeds, and mix stuff in. But we now know that all that disturbance can actually destroy the soil structure and leave it totally vulnerable. And this slide just shows the two philosophies side by side. On the left is clean till. The goal here is to bury everything, leaving the soil completely bare. But on the right, you've got conservation tillage, where the goal is the exact opposite. You want to leave as much of that old crop residue on the surface as possible. It acts like a suit of armor for the soil, holding in moisture and stopping erosion in its tracks.
Okay, so enough with the theory. Let's get practical. How do farmers actually do this stuff? Well, it involves a whole toolkit of practices designed to build and protect the most important thing on the farm, the soil itself. And the absolute cornerstone of this toolkit, the bedrock, is crop rotation. It's such a simple but powerful idea. Instead of planting, say, corn every single year, you follow a plan where you plant different crops in a sequence. Each plant has different roots, needs different nutrients, and attracts different pests, so you're constantly breaking the cycles that monocultures create. So why does this work so well? Well, for one, you're constantly interrupting the life cycles of pests and diseases that specialize in one plant. You're also messing with the weeds by changing up planting times and what you're doing in the field. And this is the really cool part. If you include legumes like peas or alfalfa, they literally pull nitrogen out of the air and put it in the soil for free, cutting your fertilizer bill for the next crop. It's amazing. Another powerhouse tool is the cover crop. These are plants you grow, not to sell, but to literally serve the soil. You might plant them in the fall after you harvest your main crop, just to make sure the ground is never left bare and exposed to wind and rain.
And the benefits here are just huge. The roots hold the soil together. The plants can choke out weeds. Sometimes they even release natural chemicals to stop weeds from growing, which is this fascinating thing called allelopathy. It's like plants waging their own little war. Then when they break down, they add all this rich organic matter that helps the soil hold on to water. It's a win-win-win.
Now, a related idea is green manure. This is kind of like the final heroic act of a cover crop. You grow a crop, usually something like a legume that's full of nitrogen, with the specific goal of plowing it back into the ground while it's still green. You're basically growing your own fertilizer and boosting your soil health all in one go. And finally, there's a practice that's as old as farming itself, fallow. Sometimes the absolute best thing you can do for a piece of land is to just let it rest. In drier parts of the world, letting a field sit empty for a season is key to letting the moisture build back up. It's also a fantastic way to break really stubborn pest cycles. It's a strategic pause that pays off big time. So when you start putting all these tools together, the crop rotation, the cover crops, the reduced tillage, you start to see a picture of a totally different kind of agriculture. It's one that's not just productive right now, but that's resilient and regenerative for the long haul. And the benefits go way beyond just a single field.
And the stakes are really high. Just look at this number, 20%. That's roughly how much grain yield we can lose to weeds every single year. That's a massive economic hit. Diverse systems with crop rotation and cover crops are one of our best shots at managing this problem without just relying on a single chemical over and over.
The impacts are truly system-wide. You get healthier soil that's just teeming with life, you get better water absorption, which helps farms handle drought, and you end up needing fewer expensive chemical inputs. And maybe most exciting of all, by building up that organic matter, these practices are pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and locking it safely in the soil, making farming part of the solution to climate change. I absolutely love this quote because it connects all the ecological benefits back to the people and the business of farming. A well-designed system isn't just good for the soil, it's good for the bottom line. It creates a more stable workflow, it uses equipment more efficiently, and at the end of the day, it builds a more sustainable and profitable farm. So we end up right back where we started, with a big question. We've seen that moving beyond this one-crop model opens up a whole new world of possibilities. If our farms can actually become systems that regenerate the resources they need, that build soil, save water, and fight climate change, well, what does that mean for the future of our food? The tools, as we've seen, are there. It's a future that is definitely worth growing.